picking the lock, coming through the door blasting.
In such a chaotic and sometimes crazy world, everybody,
mostly your ultimate brothers got niggas claiming you're winning the game. Niggas is very welcome.
I see myself changing.
We know that God is alive and He is.
Mr. Lamar, does it just feed your ego to be somebody's savior?
I take that back. I am the savior.
Everything is starting to add up, bro. The all eyes on me theory is very much alive. And if you stay to the end of this video, I pretty much guarantee that you gonna feel the same way. Even if we off, even if we not, what I'm about to provide you in this video, it's hard to refute it, bro. Now, what you just heard are isolated vocals from a cutscene at the GNX concert. If you ain't been to the GNX concert, what would happen was, in between sets, in between certain songs, there would be these scenes that pop up on the screen. And a lot of the times it was hard to really pick up on what was going on in some of them scenes. Some were skits, some were not, whatever. This scene specifically was one of the most ominous ones at the concert. And what somebody did was isolate the vocals to clear up all the noise that was around the scene so you could hear what was being said and what was actually in the scene. Now, there's two very interesting things that I think we got to take away from this cutscene, right? Number one, it's actually a Tupac interview that's hidden within the cutscene. And it's one of Tupac's most infamous videos, right? He's basically saying, I'm picking the lock and I'm coming through blasting. This is after him talking about how eventually poor people are gonna get tired after begging and begging and begging, and they gonna kick down the door, come through blasting, and take what they deserve, right? What makes it even more interesting is that about maybe 20 seconds later, you hear another Tupac interview where he says, if I'm still alive, right, in the next 5 years, I see myself changing the world. Now, the interesting thing about that is, in the interview that we talked about prior to that, Tupac says he won't change the world, but he will be the one that sparks the brain to change the world. And it's interesting how in that same cutscene, you can see how Tupac's perspective changes. And he says, actually, if I'm still alive 5 years from now, I will change the world. Now, this is where it gets very interesting, all right? The other thing that we get to take away from that cutscene is the very end, where Kendrick Lamar seemingly says, right, I take that back. I am the savior. What makes that interesting is the fact that on Mr. Morale, he has a whole song dedicated to the fact that he's not your savior. But then in this cutscene, he has a change of mind and says, you know what? I am. Now think about the parallel, where at one point Tupac felt like, I'm not gonna be the one to change the world, but I will spark the brain that changes the world. On Mr. Morale, Kendrick says, I am not your savior. I find it just as difficult to love thy neighbor, etc., right? But then later, after Tupac gets out of prison and does the Vibe interview, he says, if I'm alive in 5 years, I can see myself changing the world. Kendrick does the same thing at the end of the cutscene and says, I take that back. I am the savior. Are you seeing the parallels? That's very interesting.
Reincarnated with love. My Gemini twin back power went up. No more handshakes and hugs.
I want y'all to take a look at something that SZA posted a few days ago, right? 9 years. Completion. Next round is rebirth. What could have she have possibly meant by that? Right? That's what a lot of people are trying to figure out. Well, the thing is, it's been 9 years since Doves in the Wind came out with Kendrick Lamar. Hence is why one of the frames from the music video is in the story, right? But what does that have to do with 9 years specifically? Completion specifically? Rebirth specifically? This is where we got to do some digging. The number 9 universally symbolizes completion, spiritual awakening, and humanitarianism. As the final single-digit number, it represents the closing of a cycle and the wisdom gained from life's experiences, making it deeply tied to transitions, universal love, and new beginnings. Now, if you look at everything that's been going on from that perspective, right? think about bodies and think about the lyrics in that song. That's all Kendrick is saying. That's all Kendrick is saying in that song. Reincarnated with love, my Gemini twin back powering up. This is the rebirth. This is the recalling. This is stepping into the new reality, the new possibilities by embodying, right, what the higher version of you in that new reality actually lives, does, says, and etc. That's what Kendrick Lamar is saying in bodies. Even if we go to reincarnated, even if we go to all of these songs are literally pushing the idea of the rebirth, the old chapter closing, the new chapter beginning, starting anew, right? And not only doing that, even in Man at the Garden, when he's telling you, I deserve this, I'm running at 6 a.m., I'm doing all these things. Kendrick Lamar is literally living and embodying what that higher version of him would be doing in that timeline. So when SZA goes on Instagram and says 9 years ago, right, we are at completion and it's time for the rebirth, that sounds like the era that we're about to get into, the rebirth, the fresh start. Now, if number 9 is the number of completion, right, and it's at the very end right before 10, then what would 1 represent? In spiritual traditions and numerology, the number 1 represents creation, new beginnings, and independent consciousness. It signifies the spark of existence, individual leadership, and the power to shape your reality through pure intention and willpower. Which is interesting when you hear lyrics like this.
My alias, Gandhi, Gaddafi, King Tut, I'm ancient.
Mind you, in the same verse, he's talking about godly vibrations and serotonin, right? The things that he does to naturally produce serotonin on top of the fact of reaching these godly vibrations, which in my mind is just alignment with the source, right? What makes all of this crazy is then he follows that up with my alias, Gandhi, Gaddafi, King Tut, I'm ancient. It's the same thing that Tupac did with Machiavelli, but he's just chosen different figures. And I think that's what makes this parallel so interesting, because we are watching somebody literally collapse identities to create the reality that he wants. And that doesn't mean that he's getting away from who he is. It's just choosing and deciding to go to a higher version of who he is. In each timeline, you get a different version of you. On a different timeline, you're doing some horrible shit. You're doing some terrible things to people, to yourself, whatever. On another timeline, you're doing incredible things for yourself and others. They all exist simultaneously. You get to choose which one you want to experience in real time. And it does start with calling for these things, calling for it, stepping into it, and living it. Now, this is about to fuck y'all heads up. We're coming up on some very significant dates in the next few days. June 16th, June 17th, and June 18th. June 16th being Tupac's birthday, June 17th being Kendrick's birthday, June 18th being the death date of XXXTentacion, which is somebody that Kendrick Lamar revered, loved his music, etc., right? Have we caught on to the fact that PG Lane, Kendrick Lamar, etc., have been very specific about releasing things on Tuesday, whether it be documentary, song, whatever. They've been very specific about things releasing on Tuesday. What if I told you that Tupac's birthday falls on a Tuesday this year? June 16th is on a Tuesday this year. But forget that. Even if we're talking about the industry standard of when music usually drops, XXXTentacion's death date is June 18th, and that would be Thursday. I do think the likelihood of Kendrick Lamar releasing something is high. Now, I could be wrong. I've been wrong 150 times. But based on everything we've been talking about here, even if it isn't on those specific days, I think it's gonna be soon. And I wouldn't doubt it if bodies is actually Heart Part 7, considering everything that we've been talking about with the completion of the number 9, the definition, the representation of number 9, the representation of number 1, right? Rebirth, the Heart Part 7 documenting the rebirth. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the Heart series is over. Who knows? But it's hard to ignore that. It's hard to ignore those factors. And you know what? We could make this a longer video, could make it about 20, 25 minutes and all that different stuff. But honestly, I love doing the theories with y'all live on YouTube. The All Eyes on Me theory that, you know what I'm saying, we crafted together on that day was so fun. It was so dope. So honestly, I think I'm gonna save the rest of this video for the live tomorrow and then drop another video, a part 2 on this, and complete it, because in reality there's still so much more to talk about, especially when we talk about the representation of the number 7, right, and how that correlates with a potential Heart Part 7 release and where Kendrick is potentially going, or even number 6, and how the representation of number 6 is harmony, balance, and partnership and all the different stuff. And the Heart Part 6 was about him and his relationships with his people. I don't know, man, it's a lot to talk about. And we also got to get to the comparisons and the parallels of Machiavelli, All Eyes on Me, G and X, and the potential double album that I see that Kendrick can end up dropping. But instead, we'll do that live. We'll do that live tomorrow. Y'all come rock with me on live tomorrow. Let's put the pieces together. Let's do it together. You feel what I'm saying? Like, comment, subscribe, especially if you're new here, especially if you've been here. Tap in with the Patreon where I got all my other, you know what I'm saying, theories. I got about 4 tinfoil hat theories on there right now that are pretty crazy too. And those probably ain't gonna come to YouTube. But feel free to tap with the Patreon for the Jay-Z reactions, music reactions. I dropped 4 today. The Kendrick Lamar Boom leak, the YG track with Absol and JID, the freestyle by Absol, and the Blueprint 2 reaction. I dropped all 4 of those today on the Patreon. So tap in, I'm put the card right there. Come rock with me on YouTube live tomorrow, and let's put the pieces together. Love y'all, man. I'm gonna catch you.